finishing his.
Okay. Hold on. Where am I at? Well, I'm live. I'm live. I'm live. Hold on. Hold on. There we go. Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the fantastic Tuesday night show, Into the Night with Sean Kelly. How is everybody doing? In fact, I'm going to bring this up close. There we go. Now we can see Michael's pretty face. I just want to say that we are on UPRN Talk Radio 105.3 New Orleans, 107.7 Mississippi. I want to thank Carnation for sponsoring this hour of the show. Hello, good evening, Beth. Good evening, Clay. Good evening, and Loaded Gun Coffee. Loaded Gun Coffee. And I tell you what, we got an exciting show. It's been a while since I had Mike on, and he is like my best friend, and I learn a lot from this man. I mean, I really do. And tonight he has some interesting stuff that he is going to bring up on the show, and I'm really excited to hear about it. And good evening, Mr. Michael.
Hey, what's up, Sean Kelly?
What's up, buddy? Good to see you.
Show on UPRN with Sean Kelly. Hey, listen, brother, it's been a while. You're right, and I thought, when I wrote to you about some ideas, and I really do want to address some of these other ideas. Everybody, check it out. And I think Sean will like this too, because he's working on it with me, is, the Ghost of 9/11 and a couple other things. That's just a little tidbits of hints coming probably up into the fall, because it takes a while to, get a lot of creative measures together. But there is ghostly things that happen that do affect and surround that particular date and time. But I appreciate you having me on. It's always an honor to come on with you. It really is, because you have this huge platform of viewership into the night, with the radio and all that stuff and all these places that you share. And you know how they put me in jail all the time. So every once in a while, I got to dive into the pool where I can at least, get a word in edgewise. But how do you want to start with this? Because I told you Philadelphia Mantauk, but there's something I didn't want to throw the pitch at you at Pegasus.
You know what, Mike? First of all, hello, Cindy. Good to see you. She said hello, Michael, too. Cindy.
Hi, Cindy. How are you? Let me see if I can get comments up, because right now I don't have any.
I hope you can. You should be.
Oh, Cindy Simpson. Yeah, I did. I clicked it on. I wasn't sure.
Well, that's okay. We got now you can look at the comments, and you know what, sir?
What's that, sir?
Let's go with the Pegasus, dude. Let's go with the Pegasus.
Okay. Well, this is all going to combine. And what I want to say is there's been many stories, many good interviewers that have interviewed people of high caliber information. We'll call it the high caliber loaded gun coffee information. And it's true, though, like Art Bell, where, he's had on some very, very special guests like Al Bulick and AKA Ed Cameron, AKA supposed brother named Duncan, who have time jumped, went into jump rooms. But where does this all come from? Where did it all start? Maybe with a man by the name of Joseph Basiago. So and why I say that is it does reflect into some people that you and I even had on as guests when we were doing Chase and Prophecy. People were writing books and putting information about the Philadelphia Project into them. They may have been duped on their information. They may have to make.
What do you mean dupe? What do you mean by being duped, man? That author is a good friend of ours. So why would they want to dupe him for? Why do you think?
Well,
Go ahead.
this information.
Continue.
Yeah, this information, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wherever there's a product of something, this information follows. So I tried to put a little strategy down. So if you see me look down time to time real close at something, that's because you know the one eye syndrome. But so anyway, you got guys like Art Bell and some of the kings out there who were interviewing this guy who brought a story to light. And I don't want to focus around Al Bulick tonight. Not in this moment, but we could reflect to him maybe at a later date. But you're going to see the significance of what this all means and why it all ties together. The most important part is of subject matter. Was it really the Eldridge or was it the ship Martha's Vineyard? And why did it all start? And what brought this all into place and focus was in 1898 Tesla teleportationing in Philadelphia. Okay. Al Bulick is not a missing faculty of focus because, to be honest with you, he was highly intelligent, without a doubt, very knowledgeable. Art Bell tested him, and Art was you can't say enough. Art studied this stuff, and Art took him home, took him to bat, questioned everything, and this guy could deliver a lot of things in great ways. But it comes back to me from everything that I've been finding out over the past 20 years, that there is a little bit of the information that's disinformation that the military first-handedly had their hand in through the Navy of this information. So I'm going to start out with some of my notes to give some background and try to remember why I wrote them the way I did as well. But before I do, I want to highlight something else. And that's like Mr. Pruitt, Mr. Moon, Mr. Parsons, Mr. Basiago, Mr. Nichols, Mr. Beckwith, and this Mr. Beckwith, who's been with the project since the earliest times and days of all this, and what happened by accident that took them further into the future to develop Pegasus, was a man by the name of Beckwith, and who not only just was a man, he had 20 award-winning recognitions for some of the most sophisticated developments in technology. So, I mean, we're talking about crystals. We're talking about holographics. We're talking about putting a method across the platform. So you have this platform of information that's going on with all this. And it's going to include DARPA. Why not? I mean, truthfully. And where did some of this information come from? Actually, Andrew Basiago. So let's keep in mind that Andrew was Joseph's son, who was brought into early projects as a children project under Pegasus. Imagine that, teleporting children, and that they were able and had the capabilities in 1968 to practice it normally as if it, so anyway, it gets pretty mind-blowing. But it all starts under a Philadelphia name, but it didn't take, in fact, it did not take place in a Philadelphia shipyard, as we all believe. Right. So there are things that are coming forth that Andrew knew that his father had first-hand into information and developments. So these names that I just mentioned are highly important when it comes to the subject matter of all this. Why did this all happen? Let's go back to 1952. 9 crafts flying over the Capitol. So we're talking ufology tonight. We're talking about teleportation, all this different stuff, time jumping. And why was it important for the military to do this the way they did? Well, the UFOs were doing a disappearing act over the Capitol, jumping in time. What they based it upon as time. Now you see me, zip, gone. Now you don't. And back again. And moving at 7,000 miles per hour. The Washington Post releases photographs of this happening in real time and does a story on it with substantial background to the event of it taking place. So, of course, the military gets highly involved on it, and they want to move on it and start figuring out how they can. And that brings some of Tesla's vibrations back into his early works. And we're talking about not even into the 19th century. Tesla already had some of these reasons solved, some of these ideas solved. He was already working with them. And going back to DARPA and Pegasus and the time travel and Ralph Parsons, I mean, these are all highly credible names of importance. CIA, jump test rooms, participants. This also takes me back, this should blow your mind. If this is actually factually all true, the way I'm laying it out, the way I found it, the way some of the stories have come back to me and in researching it, then it says maybe we were jumping back in time and we are the ones that went back and put things in place in history and came back from it. One thing we do know is you can't take something out of history and try to replace it, because the abnormalness that will occur will change the element of all history. Even if I was to be removed, the element of all history is removed that surrounds a megalithic structure of content and people. So they knew that they had to take baby steps into everything they did. So when you see some of these pictures, and I'm reflecting back to these pictures, like at the Ford Theater picture, where they're saying that there was somebody wearing sunglasses in a picture that matched our era of time, that didn't fit the era of time, but somehow this guy's in this original photograph.
Okay,
So,
I've seen other photographs like that too, Michael, of other people dressed up like that with
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So this is part of the layout and the structure that I was able to put together going through on this. So we have what's also called the Defense Technical and Advancements Research that falls under DARPA. And wherever there's a mystery, DARPA's involved. I mean, it's just that's the focus of who they are, what they are. But let me turn my page here to the note, because I'm trying to follow some notes to make sure I do things the best I can in chronological order for you. But do you follow me where I'm at so far?
Yeah, I am. I do. I do.
Okay.
My people out there who are listening to the show, I think he's doing this really simple for us. People in the chat room, if you have any questions or anything that you want to bring up, please feel free to do so. Cindy Simpson says 1952 is before any of us was born. My mom was only 5.
Yeah, I wasn't born. I didn't come around to the late 50s. So, yeah, you're right. She got me there. But it doesn't mean that we can't go back, reach in, grab out
Oh,
of the
hell
ones
no,
that
not at all.
we know exist.
Right, exactly.
But again, this tells you how, when people say that we're, 100 years advanced, we jumped. Maybe we didn't jump. Maybe there was significant people that actually were working on things, and we were left in the dark. Because who would have thought 70 years ago this was taking place, or in 1899, 1898, that Tesla was already working on this, having success with it, understanding electromagnetisms and all these other correlations that fit radio wave, microwaves, and crystals and holographics.
Right. Now, wasn't the government after Tesla? Refresh my memory. Weren't they wanted his stuff?
Well, from what I understand, the stuff was taken upon his death, and from what I understand, that I always knew and talked about, but I don't know the authenticity of it. We'll never. I don't think any of us will. But there's enough speculation and enough people that did make mentions of things that Donald J. Trump's uncle, John Trump, was one of the first ones to arrive in his hotel room and remove most of his documentations. But not only that, he was an adversary working for the United States government. He created plasma beam weaponry that the United States waved off and says we're never going to need it, and Russia bought it. So how does commonality work? Every country has a battleship, right? If we have one, China has one.
Right.
If we have a fighter jet, China has a fighter jet. So there's a blanket. And this is a method to the madness of how the whole system works through war, old men making it, young men fighting it, young women fighting it, etc. So they put themselves into these places and positions of it, on how it works. But this all started out of Okanite with Joe Andrew's father, Basiago. And they come in because they have interest to him because of what he's doing, what he's working on. And they immediately tell him, you no longer work here. Okay, so let's just bringing up what you just said about Tesla, and they were like kind of after all his stuff. Same scenario, same exact scenarios. They said, you're going to report now to Curtis Wright. And so Joe gets on Curtis Wright and he fits in. And what I've been able to find out, and from some things that I've been proven through interviews talking that Andrew brought forth, was he was told that he was going to be working on the real reason for the Philadelphia project to take place was Project Ramjet. Okay. I hope Jim Goodall can tell me a little bit about that because he's coming on a show with me. He was a top secret person, and usually top secret people who were flight test pilots like John Lear and him, they knew about everything prior to the public ever knowing anything because they had to be trained to get into the seat, into the cockpit to even actually understand the function of the unit they were going to fly. So this all fits too well as a faculty of truth. So here's Joe. He's working now in Curtis Wright. And the first thing they tell him, we want you to develop the skin for the Ramjet plane, this program format. So they were working with Ramjet rockets and everything else, trying to keep them from burning up in the atmosphere. But they're more important and higher into the stratosphere from what they consider to be space dust, protecting and shielding the unit and the pilot while he was up here. But more important, it goes even to a step even more important. Why was it so important? Because they wanted to chase the bad UFOs out. Ooh. Documented words.
Okay.
You heard what I said.
Documented
words. All right. Now, there's a lot of good people out in the world that get up and they do lectures, they do speakings, and I don't know if they understand that, the further you deep, the more you find. So we know that's going on now, and we know some of the areas of what's going on. I mentioned a lot of these people earlier, how they were going to be of importance. And it was 1890. I'm just verifying my notes. In 1899, Tesla did an experiment and broke ground on the teleportation programs. So that's part of the era of what they wanted to understand. The science behind the importance of going from point A, disappearing and reappearing at point B, and then doing it again. And not only doing it again, being able to travel at 7,000 miles per hour. And it was recorded. It was factually recorded by an Air Force base. So, here we go with that. It also goes from this point and that in the story to other facts. And one of them is the SRI 1972 Ego Swan, which then pulled into different scenarios of measures of what they would do to be able to get into a different faculty of mind and consciousness to be able to understand teleportation and all these other inventions that they were working on. And what Tesla actually dabbled into and started was a format of a bunch of things that came forth. So imagine yourself a spider building a web. That's what this turned into, a web of information of different projects, of different developments, of sophistication and science. And it's still, we live within it today. Even Standard Oil, it was part of it. And why is that important? Well, when you look at who's controlling the United States of America now, most of the globe, it's the richest people like Rothschild, Rockefeller, etc. And who owned all the oil? We know about petroleum. We know about the stories. Everybody's been talking about it. So you have an oil company's interest also inside this all, developing something. Standard Oil, 1969, came up and invented what they called the coronavisor. And so this unit was a unit to where it was developed, and I don't understand the faculty of how they were able to put the method into the madness of creation. But once you turned it on, it would genuinely like shoot a holographic. And if you were standing in the center point of that holographic, it would take you to a time period, past, present, or future, forward or after, and place you there and surround you. So they were utilizing this and utilizing it in a deep way to where it was working in 1969, 68, and they were having success in being able to do it by sending people. The part that I have the hardest part comprehending in this is understanding the only clue we have to the shutdown was said that when it went through a shutdown phase, you would see all these different timelines appearing and disappearing really, really quick. So how did the sophistication to be able to present a timeline for one to walk into is part of the fact and that I don't quite understand. Maybe it's not in my pay grade to ever understand it. Did they have outside help? Or did they, again, somehow have or come across information that helped them build this machine that Standard Oil owned? And one of the other more fascinating things, too, was Lieutenant Commander of the Navy. Get this name. Oh, got a little fly or something by me. In 1972, oh, I'm sorry, I passed that. I apologize. Lieutenant Commander of the Navy, John McCain.
Okay.
John McCain was part of this, and was mentioned by Andrew Basiago. So, here you have more names coming up, trying to understand what was called simulations. So the simulations worked, and these are the words that the DARPA agents used when they would question and after the events that they would put the children through. And we're talking about kids that were 6 years old, 7 years old, being prepped to be part of this system of like astronauts, but not astronauts, astral type of beings being able to jump through jump rooms. And we even heard Laura Eisenhower talk about these being presented to her once upon a time to be part of a system going to Mars to a jump room. There's been subject matter that came out that said that once upon a time, Obama himself used one. But they were developed to try to understand travel by going through one room of a location, having this chronovisor working in another room, and say it was in Mexico. Well, you would go in here and come out in Mexico. Beam me up, Scotty. All aboard Star Trek. I mean, why were all these things put in place? And now why is the math adding up to 2 + 2 is equaling 4? Because of the system of what they were doing and how they were doing it. And there's a lot I'm leaving out because 50 minutes just doesn't give you enough. So I'm going to stop there for now in case you want to breathe on your his participation.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this has like been really, really not entertaining, but very interesting facts.
I can be quite entertaining.
Yeah, you can very much so. It's that's why I like you. Oh, hey Gary, what are you? Good to see you. Yes, I do remember you, Rose. Yes, I do. Danny Cantrell says interesting facts. Cindy Simpson says yes, amazing detailed information. Gary like to know, did Tesla invent the time machine?
Basically.
The Warren-Cliff Tower? Some speculate that Tesla's unfinished Warren-Cliff Tower designed for wireless transmission of power could have manipulated gravity or even served as time travel device. However, the evidence supporting these claims is purely theoretical and lacks scientific basis. January 7, 2024.
Well, I mean, to me, that's disinformation. When you leave the open-mindedness out of it, factuality becomes non-existent. Right. I don't look at things like that. My subject matter is to get to the bottom of the pile of the junk and bring the nuts and bolts out of it and make them fit into the object I need for them to fit within. So I'm going to say yes in more ways than one on the factuality. and he was the genius. When they said that Einstein was actually part of the test in the Philadelphia project, he wasn't even on the ship. And we know that through testimony. We know that through whistleblowing. We know that through people bringing things forth. That's why I'm saying Al Bulick may have been the disinformation that they were looking for, that they needed, that the Navy was behind. Our Navy was, remember, shipyard, Navy,
Right.
and who was really there. So I know who was really there. I know exactly who they were. And I want to also tell you that this goes back even to Barry Goldwater. Barry Goldwater knew about all this. John McCain's father knew about all this. What type of person was John McCain? Why was John McCain so? Well, I'm not going to get into that because I don't want to open up a political nightmare on people, because
No.
I go into my own spider webs. But stepping back into the system of what they were able to develop through the people, and these people. I mean, when you talk about guys like Jim Parson and Pruitt, I mean, we're talking about the best in the world that ever been, the best you'll ever have, the best there's ever been. Wasn't that like Ric Flair's motto? And everybody believed him. They turned on to WWE to watch him, and he was a moron. His family owned the pharmaceutical company. They were making millions. They were all in cahoots. Who was the New World Order? Hulk Hogan. How long ago? Look, I'm telling you, there's nuts and bolts everywhere. You just got to open it up, look at the old tag team names. It was all laid out in many ways to all of us a long time ago. But Mr. Beckwith, one of the most brilliant minds that ever lived besides, Mr. Tesla. And there were some other ones as well. There were some other ones. And we did learn from these guys the capabilities that would take us into a completely different era of development under the naval intelligence. And they didn't need to have a what they called it even came out through people that the Navy intelligent cover story had to be developed. Information with disinformation for false information to occur to keep it hidden. From this, the birth of the Philadelphia Project was born, and the Black Ops was off and running under what we were warned as through Eisenhower, saying the deep military industrial complex, because they were already taking over the world working on these developments, which means they probably had enough information of science to back a process with reverse engineering to do many of the things that came up in that long comment that was up a little while ago. So outside of that, Los Alamos gets involved because why? Tesla's project. And one of the things that Beckwith always said, he would correct people in conversations at dinners, having drinks, smoking a cigar. If they got something right, talking the political agenda to these developments of Montauk, Philadelphia, and Pegasus, he was the first one to stand up with the strength of voice and correct the scenario so they understood what they were all talking about was a lie, and he was expressing to them what they needed to know was the truth. And he always lived by that. He knew the reality of the truth and the facts, and he never did nothing to the man, but they let him speak about it, and many learned about that. So Beckwith was a real rock star in all this. But and Edison Labs also got involved, and they wanted to be involved with time travel. This is how we started outsourcing to George Bigelow and all these other people and all these other complexes of outside contracting, because the government can't ask an outside contractor for what's being done inside, because we're paying them to do it. It's a double-edged sword of how to hide the truth of the facts. So
what do you think of the reason why that the government went along with this? What was their final outcome? What did they want to achieve through all of this? With all
a lot more than what they thought they ever could.
Okay.
They, by accident, studying energy changed the whole dynamics of everything. And they knew that Tesla was on to it. They knew it. And Tesla actually got it all functioning in ways. So when it got handed off to these guys in these other places in science, they were able to perfect it. And when you look at the people who wanted this perfected, we're talking about the elites of the world of a dark, deep, other significance, not just America the Beautiful or United States government and military complex. No, we're talking about the big division of why and who they were. Standard Oil was a product of the rich. He owned every oil company. He actually was confronted under one entity, and then he diversified into several. So Sunoco, Atlantic Richfield, Arco, all these different oil companies became subsidiaries of the wealthy who were hiding because the money was the biggest source of format of income until they really put their hands into the Washington's pocket. So, with that, they were able to create these systems of different narratives. So we do know that they were able to achieve the movement of the ship, but it wasn't the Eldridge. It was Martha's Vineyard. That is an important faculty. Who was on the ship also is important. And one of the other things, and this should come back to your mind, Sean, and it's really a key component of this story. When they say that significant amount of people were embedded into the metal, when it started to fade in and out, was never a factual fact. They found no death records to match anybody, anything, or any time during that period within the shipyards. But what did happen under the testing, the real testing with the ship Martha's Vineyard, one man did die from electromagnetic energy and the significance of the energy that was necessary to make it happen.
Okay. Wow. Saw that. Wow.
Well, I mean,
I'm stunned. I'm stunned, dude. I'm stunned because all that time that they've been telling us that some people just got into, part of the metal and whatever, and now you finding out that it wasn't true, and now it's just like another. What did you used to say? Well, how did you used to say? A bunch of puzzle pieces trying to be put together again.
Yeah, it's the big what if theory. But here's the other thing too. I mean, when you look at all this and stand back, so much disinformation's out there. What is really the reality of the truth? What you're willing to accept, or that you look at all the facts and say everything has had a possibility. So that's where they want us to be at. But why would naval intelligence want to automatically disband everything? And they create with the CIA a way to unify this information. Just we fight it every day of our lives right now. I mean, never more now than ever and that they know we're doing it, and that's why I suffer the consequences at many times where I can't do things publicly as I like to. And I got to push my guests back, even when I have really great stories coming in to talk about and whatnot. But so time travel in 1968 was already being practiced. I mean, and it was being used by children. And here's one of the other key components. Many of the scientific people, the electrical engineers and children to these significant names that I mentioned, like Pruitt and Moon and Parsons and Nicholas and Beckwith and Basiago, they were using their own children in these projects.
Really?
And there's mention of it.
Wow.
There's mention of it. So they were utilizing children, building a platform of a new future of how they were trying to, develop into whatever it is now. Here's the most scariest part of it. We don't know what is now. It all vanished. We know that it's still being done somehow, somewhere, someplace. We also know if there's a glitch in the system that the children were taught who to go to, how to go to them, and who to talk to if they were ever trapped in the element of this machine that they developed to be able to put people in other time platforms.
Oh, wow. Okay, we have to take a break. 70 seconds. All right. Hold on to that thought, everybody. This is really, really interesting.
70 seconds.
It's really 70 seconds. So,
Sean, can you make it 80?
Yeah, I could put that out. What the hell are you doing? You're going to get me fired.
Right,
see you all in 70 seconds.
Let your
Hey, welcome back to the show, Into the Night with me, Sean Kelly. I want to thank everybody that has stopped into the chat room. Um, just have a couple things to say. First of all, I want to thank UPRN Talk Radio, 105.3 New Orleans, 107.7 Mississippi. I also want to thank Carnation for sponsoring this hour so I can get my message out to everybody else. Um, and if you missed the first half, wow, just have to go back to the UPRN Talk Radio, on SoundCloud and check out the first half. This has been a very interesting show so far, and there's a lot of things that I have learned, things that were told to me, but now there's me thinking of something else. Okay, so back to Mr. Michael Anthony talking about the Pegasus and the Philadelphia experiment.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I don't have no news for you, Rose. Sorry about that.
Is that River?
No.
Oh, okay.
That's my friend Rose from Ireland.
Oh, hi, Oh, I remember her watching us back in the day. Yeah. Okay, so let's go on with this. So where really did this happen? It really took place in the Martha's Vineyard, like I said, but I want to make this perfectly clear. Long Island Sound, not the Eldridge, Martha's Vineyard. And to me, are we looking at twin projects also, or the possibility of where two stories are absolutely correct? This is that scenario of this that puts you into that place. But there's enough information that says one structurally became much stronger than the other one did. One was more disheartening. One was more in a positive focus of future and the future developments to where we are now. But remember, future developments are only great if they're in the right people's hand controlling them. So as a result, the teleportation that was successful actually was transferred to Newport News, Virginia. So just letting that get out there as well, so people understand what and where and what shipyard wasn't responsible for having what occur and what Al Bulick brought out. And I'm not saying Al was wrong, but when you really think about this, he always talked about jumping, same type of scenario. All this stuff existed. He brought much of it up through Art Bell, and I think that was probably one of the best interviews that there ever was to where he came on and threw a lot of the information out there. And that's why I'm saying there's another whole half of of 2 hours or an hour to one day we could conclude on by sharing some of the components of facts of his own voice. And we could even probably reflect back to them and play some of his own voice in this interview with Art Bell. I have that actual audio. So we would be able to do that. And that would interject to say that we're not all crazy here. I'm not doing this because I'm doing it because it's information. It's factual. All right, but moving on to a different area of facts. Let me just see where I am here. So going out of all this and what happened, what they were able to do, actually, it all came from something even maybe a little bit bigger. And I think it was kind of like they wanted to try to understand the focus in a war element. And that's what they were addressing Washington, Congress, and Senate because of the 1952 occurrence of how these UFOs could move at 7,000 miles per hour, move from one location to another just by like thought, what we think is thought. That's why Ego Swan was important. That's why when they put these kids into testing pods and scenarios, they did everything from probably induced drugs to spinnings. And as well, different types of, what was that thing called when we were kids, kaleidoscope or something, where you'd look through it, make all those
kaleidoscopes.
That's why they were doing it. So they were able to spin kids. Listen to this, at 33, a Masonic number, 33 revolutions, their consciousness would change into a remote view. So they were training them through every process that they put an astronaut through now.
Oh, wow.
So they were making preparation. Well, you know what? If you develop it on one side, and someone's hands in it. The other side, who's now going to develop a new side of technology, traveling, going to the moon and beyond, they would put these same type of scenarios in place because it puts you into an area of dysphoria. And how is somebody able to respond and react to dysphoria coming out of it if they go into a spin, or so all these scenarios were important as to why they did them. But Ramjet was very important, creating this shielding, because again, that's another era of format of they were worried about shielding and how to do it. And once I talked about it, I think when Travis Walton was on with you one night, and I brought up you were kind enough to ask him some questions for me of what they were doing was like in the early days, creating towels that had like certain types of minerals in them. And they reflected to a lot of significance of crystals that were able to break the elements of the heat, distorting the heat, keeping the heat away, keeping the craft ship plane in a safer environment for the flight and for the occupant of the cockpit. So you have that going on. But again, they put these things in place the way they did it for the sole purpose, as it started out, for radar and visibility. Okay. So that's what they were calling it, radar and visibility, but it was actually time traveling because they knew these crafts were jumping time. How they came to it exactly is because even when this occurred and the Navy was following it, so it was being followed, it disappeared from the radar, but then would re-show up in its next appearance. So they knew there was a loop, that there was a junction, that there was a separation from point A to point B and then back to C again, where A stood. So mathematically, they were trying to figure out how to get to these points, make them work. So, of course, you're going to tell everybody in Washington, we need all this money for radar and visibility and cloak. And doesn't that all fit the scenario where we are now? And how
absolutely it does. Yes, it does.
So you have two stories still. Yeah, I'm going to shut up in a minute and you can talk for a little bit. But we have two stories that may have focus of points. So was it a duality of two different projects at one time? All people doing the same thing, one's not being told by the other, but a new story arising, such as this, does complicate a lot of book writing that was put in place that people thought were getting the only true facts of the story from Al.
Wow. Okay. I'm just like, my head's like one big computer, Michael. Honest to God, I swear to God, my head's a computer every time I have you on because there's just so much stuff that I absorb through my brain. I hope everyone's enjoying the show so far. Michael has, what was up there? Yes, he has a lot of knowledge. I'll be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen. I am totally flabbergasted about, what I'm hearing tonight, and it's interesting. And of course, I'm going to, do some more research into this. But time traveling, it really exists.
It seems
really
so.
Does exist.
It really does seem so. That there's enough factual information, pictures. There's things out there too. What I think everybody needs to understand is when we run across things, and you'll see a video also, like you'll see a bunch of people in 1950 in New York City, all hustle and bustle to get to work. You don't see one overweight person.
No, you don't. No. And how about, wasn't there, if I'm not mistaken, the day Kennedy got shot in his car, wasn't there somebody from a time travel there too? There was somebody that wasn't supposed to be there because they weren't wearing the right attire or clothing at the time?
Well, they speculate Men in Black were there. They speculate that Val Valiant Thor was there. And Mr. V, who I call Mr. V, Mr. Venus, who was here trying to rub elbows with a lot of people and spent 2 years living in an apartment hidden in the Capitol basement. And he was working with us, trying to disarm nuclear weapons and trying to get our government on a different focus point. Some of the same scenarios that we find President Eisenhower But I want to say Laura Eisenhower just put out a book. Check out her book. There's a lot of this in there, and I got to call Brad Olson and see if I can get him to get her. I had some complications recently to where I couldn't even do shows on YouTube and whatnot, and my mail wasn't going through. All my mail for 30 days got queued. It would only be queued. Like I'd hit send, I'd have somebody else do it. Hit send, and it would stay where a little red type letter come up is saying queued. And it takes 7 to 8 days for it to go through. Has anybody else been going through that? Because I know Michael Anthony has. I mean, truth. I got to have a few people reach out to people to cushion the system to say, hey, look, he ran into some complications. Get with him. But yeah, I mean, there's big stories behind that. And a lot of people do believe that JFK Jr. is alive. I can honestly say that I might be able to prove some of that to be factually true, but it's not the one that you think is standing behind certain people of identity who you think you've seen. This is where lookalikes and people call clones and as well come into play of a reality of this dysphoria and this disinformation, this whole elaborate scheme of calculated attacks on to keep us in a state of confusion to where they win. See, it's the same as like when I discuss to people on a political note of things, when you have a system in Washington who believes what they're doing is right, they're not going to say that anything that they're doing is wrong. Even though we see a country being invaded, they see it as a country's door open to them. So this is why the agendas all work the same way in the same patterns. They truly believe and Satan. They truly believe that the door should be open. They truly, and we don't always agree with it, but we don't agree with it because there were measures put in place that say, we have certain protections, certain rights, and certain scenarios of law that are supposed to go in a certain direction. But we now know in life that none of that's factually true either. That we have a justice with an injustice. We have a system that has a different system in place, involved right now against our own, and I don't want to bring any, I don't know how much political, you can talk on your show, but I don't want you getting in trouble.
That's okay, dude. That's all right. In fact, I'm just so fed up with the shit going on out there right now with everything. I don't want to get into it right now. I'm really interested in this time travel.
Well, that's the way. If I can answer anything that if I can answer anything that I think I learned enough of to be able to answer it factually, I would gladly do it for you. I just don't know if I can because I tried to lay it out in a soft way. Believe me, this is much deeper than I laid it out.
Right. I can imagine, dude. But before we go on,
I tried to take the ice cubes and put them into the cup. I did.
I know you did. And you're doing a good job, brother. Real quick, Rose, we are doing okay. We are doing okay today. I hope you're doing well yourself. But my friend Kaysen says he has a question for you. What about the claim of his age regression? Do you know anything about that?
I've heard a lot of different scenarios of age regression and energy beds and different things like that. Yeah. You have to be a lot more specific to that because everybody had several different methods of what they were trying to do because they were going back studying the ancient events and ancient places like in the Great Pyramid where you have these sarcophaguses that were empty and yet we see elements of damages like energy cause some type of scenario to occur within them. And then ask yourself, go one step further. Why does NASA own the rights to the pyramid in Giza? They own the internal rights to it.
Oh, he came back and said, I mean the age regression of Al Billick.
Oh, yeah. I could lay that going into, we're already at 50 minutes. I don't know how long we actually have on live time, but I would like to go into that type of an answer when we could talk about Al and Duncan with jumping to 2046 and then coming back. And also then to Corey Good, who I wrote recently too, and I'm waiting on a correspondence from, because I think Corey brought up really good information that documented this whole time frame matter of 20 and back. That we have had these technologies, we just don't understand the significance of them or the science truly behind them all.
Right.
It's almost as if we are in a matrix where our energy and consciousness can go. That's been a platform of an ideology that's out there, and it's not really that our body left; it's our consciousness that is involved in a war and wars in the heavens, so to speak. So it's not a physical, but it's a mental. And you saw that in the movie Matrix. And why did DARPA come up and actually teach kids back in the early 60s who were 6 years old, when they were after going through testing, they would then have to sit down, and of course they would have to be questioned of their experiences. And their experiences, in quotes, that came back to Andrew Basiago himself, someone that was deeply into this for years, doing this jump time and more, because it's a whole lot more, was actually saying that it was explained to them that we are in a reality of a holographic matrix. Not one. It's not holographic, and it's not a matrix. It's a holographic matrix working together as an energy, as thought. So thought is God. Thought is everything. Thought is in what you see forth. So thought is what we make our reality become in a solid. Without thought, there would be nothing. It would be like you and I could put our arm through a table and do the same thing that Shadow Man can do. And that's why all of this even goes into the paranormal side of why we see things occur the way we do, why Bigfoot can come into a picture and frame and then step out of frame and disappear. These are parts of that system, and we are in it. We're just in a different fabric of it. And that's why CERN Switzerland is very important, and the collider is very important, and why these systems that have taken them, this is the new technology that all came from everything I just told you.
Wow.
And there's not just one. There's one going 200 feet below, a new collider being built 200 feet below in CERN Switzerland. But not just that, there's testing sites under colleges that have them also in them. That's why the grants were being provided to many of the colleges through funding of your taxation.
Okay. So I did hear that CERN, there are like 5 or 6 of them here in the United States. There's 5 or 6 CERNs here in the United States. Yeah, it's just crazy. But I wish we had more than 1 hour, dude. This is just so fascinating. We're going to have to come up, and I'm going to see if I can try to get a special day or something like that to do a 2-hour show with you. There was just so much information today. And I know the people who listen to us and watch us in the chat room, they're pretty intelligent people. You know what I mean? So I know a couple in there right now that, they're going to look into it. And I'm going to look into it some more. But I truly appreciate you being on, Mike. I really do. And we're going to do this next month, right? And
yeah. I just saw Joe was in the room. Big Joe was in the room. He did. I
don't know.
I don't know what it means, but Joe's another one of those guys out there who loves research and doing stuff. He's a great guy. Then you had in tonight, I think, UFO Paranormal Radio Network. Is that this?
Yeah. That's this network. Whenever watch this, Michael.
Okay, go ahead.
When I watch this, I'm typing something in.
What, so you're going to bring the boss on himself?
You'll see. See how it all, So I can, whenever I type something in, then all of that stuff comes popping up. But okay. Listen, we are at the 55-minute mark, going into 56. Michael, I want to thank you. Excellent show. Very, very nice show. Man, I'm just a great boat. We got to do this next month, my friend. Please. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I probably missed some focal points going through it too, and I apologize for that. But I knew the time was of the essence, and I'm not this isn't a show for someone to come on and be a speaker lecturer. But bringing the most in the element of an hour, it's 2 hours is sometimes too much. It's you don't need it all, but 1 hour doesn't always substantiate it either. It's just like it's a give or take double-edged sword effect. But Joe has the
We'll see what
or
we
the
can
button.
do. We'll see what we can do. But my friend Rose from Ireland would like to know what NASA means. Could you please tell her what NASA
To
means?
deceive, nasha. It comes back from an ancient word to deceive. And
Okay.
that's what they do. Exactly. They deceive. We're
Okay.
practicing other things behind, but it's not us. It's a deep state, separate government from who we really are. And their job is to deceive. And they always have.
All right, Mike, thank you for being on. Everybody, please, children, if you can, go to your parents, give them a hug and tell them that you love them. And parents, please go to your children and give them a hug and tell them that you love them. And if you don't have no parents, if you have no children, then you know what? Find somebody to hug and tell them that you love them. And on that note, thank you for tuning in, Michael. Thank you again for being on. And we will see everybody here on Sunday night. And have a good night. See you Sunday.